Hello, welcome to the Grow Your Wealthy Mindset podcast, where it is all about helping amazing physicians just like you create a wealthy life free from burnout and with the financial security to practice medicine on your own terms. I'm your host, Dr. Elisa Zhang. Hello, friends, and thank you for joining me for another episode of the Grow Your Wealthy Mindset podcast. The topic of today's episode are prenups and wills, and the surprising link between these two seemingly very different subjects. Prenups can be a touchy subject to bring up after you're engaged. I've heard of people say it's like planning a divorce before you're even married. Wills are often a less touchy subject, but still something people avoid because, well, it means thinking about death. What links these two together is a simple, undeniable truth. Everyone already has a default prenup and a default will. You just didn't write them. If you don't have a personalized prenup, you're essentially accepting the default prenup determined by the state where you reside if you ever file for a divorce. If you don't have a will, the state where you legally reside at the time of your death will determine exactly who inherits your assets. And depending on what you own, things can get tricky. If you live in one state but own real estate in another, the laws of the state where the land is physically located will dictate who inherits it. In the end, the result is the same. Your personal preferences are completely ignored. The point is, if you want a say in how your assets are distributed after your death, you need to have a will. And depending on your assets and your goals, a trust can be incredibly beneficial as well. As physicians, because we deal with mortality at some point in our training, having a will is usually looked at as a practical task. It's just something that's easy to put off, rather than being an issue of facing our own mortality. I rarely hear physicians push back on the need for estate planning. Usually, the pushback is about how much planning is actually needed and the cost involved. Yet, the same practical attitude completely disappears when it comes to the prenup. Many people get uncomfortable when it comes to prenups due to a mix of emotional, cultural, and psychological reasons. The biggest critique is that creating a prenup means that you're anticipating the end of the marriage. Asking for one is often looked at as a vote of no confidence in the longevity of the relationship. Despite the statistical reality of divorce, our culture loves to believe that marriage is forever. Couples in love want to believe that their bond is unbreakable, so introducing a cold, legal contract about asset division feels unromantic. On top of that, we live in a culture where openly talking about money is often considered rude, perhaps vulgar, or taboo. Discussing a prenup combines the two biggest social taboos we have, money and divorce, in a single conversation. There's also a fear of judgment or mistrust. Asking for a prenup can trigger insecurities, making a partner feel like they aren't trusted to act fairly if things go wrong. If one partner enters a marriage with significantly more assets or family wealth, the conversation can feel completely one-sided. This is especially true if the less wealthy partner is expected to step back from their career in order to support the other's advancement or to stay at home and raise children. The partner making the sacrifice naturally worries a prenup will leave them stranded. I understand that when it comes down to it, talking about divorce with your fiancé, even before you say I do, is something that can feel incredibly uncomfortable. But think of it this way. You should be able to discuss uncomfortable topics with the person you're planning to marry. It doesn't mean that you won't feel anxiety over it. You can feel the anxiety and have the conversation anyway. Because if you don't, you're blindly accepting the default prenup of whatever state you happen to live in if things go south. Wouldn't it be better to make decisions together when the relationship is good, rather than letting a state judge make the decisions at the point where the relationship has fallen apart? Now, for full transparency, I actually do not have a prenup. My husband and I married when we were young, before I even applied to medical school, and well before either of us had careers, much less any real assets. In fact, we both entered marriage with a negative net worth due to our undergraduate debt. By today's standards, it was fairly small and relatively equal. I had around $18,000 of debt, and he had, I think, around $12,000. On top of that, neither of us expected to receive any significant inheritances from our families. At the time, we didn't feel like we had anything to protect. But looking back and knowing what I know now, I realized that our circumstance dictated that choice. Circumstances that don't apply to many of you who are listening to this podcast. And it made me realize that a prenup can go a long way to protect both partners in a marriage. It can establish fair expectations. It can shield a partner from the other's pre-existing debts. It can even have surprising and incredibly positive results for the marriage itself. Instead of viewing a prenup as a divorce plan, we need to start viewing it for what it actually is, the ultimate exercise in financial intimacy. When you sit down to write a prenup, you are forced to be 100% transparent about your financial reality, your anxieties, your values, and your future goals. You're deciding, as a team, how you will support each other. If one partner does sacrifice their career path for the family, a well-crafted prenup doesn't leave them stranded. It actually protects them better than a state law by guaranteeing their sacrifice is financially recognized. It ensures that love, equity, and fairness rule the day, not a rigid state statute. Which brings me back to our community of physicians. Why is this conversation so crucial for us? First, consider the delayed gratification trajectory of medicine. Many of us spent our 20s and 30s accumulating massive student debt while earning next to nothing. If you marry during residency or fellowship, you may have a net worth in the negative hundreds of thousands, but your future earning potential is immense. A prenup allows you to protect your partner from the massive debt you brought into the relationship, while clearly defining how the future hard-earned medical income will be managed. Second, medicine is a high burnout, high liability profession. A prenup can be used as a brilliant tool for asset protection, shielding family assets from potential medical malpractice lawsuits or business liabilities associated with private practice. And perhaps the most profound reason physicians should embrace prenups is because we know the value of preventative medicine. In the clinic, we don't wait for a patient to have a massive heart attack before we talk about controlling blood pressure and cholesterol. We practice preventative care. We mitigate risk. We have tough conversations early because we know it saves lives later. A prenup is simply preventative medicine for your marriage. It aligns your financial health before the stress of life, kids, and a demanding medical career takes over. By taking the default state laws off the table and replacing them with a conscious, loving blueprint of your own design, you aren't planning for divorce. You are actively building a foundation of transparency, trust, and communication that will help ensure your marriage really does last a lifetime. So let's stop avoiding what's uncomfortable. Sometimes it's best to lean into the anxiety, have the conversation, and take control of your future together. If you're listening to this episode and you have a prenup, I'd love to hear how that conversation went with you and your spouse. Email me at growyourwealthymindset@gmail.com. Thank you so much for being a listener of the Grow Your Wealthy Mindset podcast, and have a great week. If you enjoyed this episode, I would love it if you could share it with your friends and colleagues. And now for the disclaimer. I am not a certified financial planner, accountant, or attorney, and nothing I say should be construed as professional investment, tax, or legal advice. This show is primarily for your education and entertainment. I am a physician, but I'm probably not your physician. So if you need any medical advice, please contact your own physician. Thank you.